أعطيني بزر. بزرين.
الشاب مقيم بالضفة
Hello, my name's Andy Reader. I hope you can hear me and now see me on the camera. Could you indicate that you are able to do that?
Yes, Victor. Hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you. Is that, forgive me, Fadi?
Yes, Doctor.
Hello.
Hi, Doctor.
And okay, yes, I know we have and Amira, is that you're online? Maybe not, Amira. See, okay. Forgive the somewhat shaky start. I've seen a couple of you before on sessions that Matt Brown has run, and I have watched him expertly run the sessions. And now it's my turn. So this is my first occasion for doing this. And I hope that you will get something from it. And I'm going to say forgive any technical errors that may occur. We will get it back at some point, I'm sure. So, and this is the session as part of 724, Development as a Strategic Manager. This is the session on governance and directorships, related obviously to how businesses are set up and ensure that they are run in an appropriate manner, both in terms of the shareholders, the main stakeholders within the business, but also their customers, their employees, and everything like that. What I propose to do, let's say some things first about how we operate. I'm a very visual person. In other words, I like to see people. So please don't be afraid if you wish to put cameras on, etc. That doesn't bother me at all. In fact, I would prefer it. And equally with responses or questions that you may have, please don't be afraid to unmute the microphone and speak. I'm getting better at this idea of looking at chat, but it's still one of those things that occasionally somebody will put something in chat that sits there and I don't see it. So I would much rather you say the words rather than just write them. But I understand that you're used to doing a particular way, and I don't want to disrupt that to any great extent. I also just wanted to say a couple of things about myself. As I said, it's the first occasion on which I've run a session like this. But I have been working in the field of learning and development for some considerable time, about 30 years. And also I have been involved in operational management within businesses, various different types of businesses, at various times during my working career. And I have also, as with Matt, studied the various different aspects of business through MBA, and yeah, it fascinates me the different ways in which companies set themselves up and operate themselves, and in some cases also it's the failures that are the ones that we notice, the ones that bring things to light, but also of course the things we learn from. So again, I'm always quite a pragmatic person in the sense of I want to know that something is going to work. It's nice having a theory, but how does that theory apply to real life? There may be things that you ask me a question and I'll be perfectly honest, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, in which case I will find the answer and I will make sure that I transmit the answer to you in whatever way we can. So at this stage, has anybody got any questions about the topic or about me? that you might want to ask, by all means ask them, and then we can, if not, move forward.
Hi, Doctor. Do you have any previous material to read other than that one found in the portal?
I've got some. In the sense of there are certainly some books that I haven't got them available with me at the moment, and some articles in relation to things like governance. And as I said, often it's the failures that we pick up on. So why did Enron, which is probably the most famous failure, if you like, why did it fail, and what can we learn from it? So I've got some articles certainly on that, and I will most certainly pass those through to you.
Okay. Hi.
Hello there.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
What's the difference between governance and management? As I understood that governance related to board members.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes,
okay.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes, governance is, I suppose, it's an umbrella. The board is obviously an authority above the management level, and it's setting the parameters within which the whole business operates, which includes management, and it is even down to what type of IT systems might we use, and what type of software are we going to use, which aren't necessarily individual management questionnaires. And they also, obviously, the board are responsible for, let's say, the softer side of the business and the ethics, the culture. Okay, you can't dictate a culture, but you can certainly set a culture and hope that people are going to follow. Whereas management is about the day-to-day operation of the business to produce the things it's there to produce, whether it be a service or a product, and is not as wide-ranging as governance.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you've looked at the information, if you like, on governance, and as I said, there's a gloriously vague definitions, as the most usually are in these things that are more strategic, if you like, in that governance is about the dealing with a range of issues that any business faces, and about making sure that all those elements are in place. Let's put it that way. They create the infrastructure for the business to operate in.
Okay, thank you.
It's okay. Anybody anything else?
Mm-hmm. Can
Okay.
I have another question?
Yeah, by all means, please.
Okay, I would like to discuss the types of directors more in details.
Right. Yes.
So can we?
Yeah. Yes, most certainly. And I don't know whether that is. Does anybody else have that particular need to discuss types of directors or interest in that? I mean, I suppose everybody would be interested in it, but I just wondered if anybody else had a specific interest in it. And we could, obviously, sometimes questions have different slants, so I wanted to make sure that I was giving the slant. In relation to anything particular, in relation to different types of directors? Hello?
Did you ask me?
Yes, sorry. I wondered if you had a sort of a particular aspect of the different types of directors that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, what I mean is like difference between executive director and so on.
A non-executive director.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I mean, broadly speaking, the difference between executive and non-executive is, I guess their level of responsibility within the business and I guess their accountability, etc. So directors are appointed. Well, I suppose they're both appointed by the board, but directors are usually employees of the company, whereas non-executive directors are not employees of the company, but they are almost appointed or even seconded, probably not quite the right word, for a particular maybe ability they have or skill they have. And they're there, yes, to bring their own knowledge and expertise, but they also fulfill almost like a checking function on the board of directors as a whole. I know just recently there was a lot of, within the UK certainly, there was a lot of comment and questions about non-executive directors as to whether there were getting be too many of them on boards, because they have not as much liability, if you like, as a director, an ordinary director. And the question was whether they were exercising, therefore, too much control or disproportionate control compared to the proper directors. Is there anything else that you want? I mean, I can, we can look further, but I don't want to just keep saying things that you may already know. And I would certainly be very glad to maybe provide a fuller answer than that in relation to the difference between the two.
Okay, there is a title that called Roles and Responsibilities of Directors. Yes. So we have executive, non-executive, and we have chairman, managing director, alternate or acting director, nominee director, shadow director. Right, this is what I mean. Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of stuff.
Yes, there's a lot there, I admit. And some of them, and I'm going to confess to you, at this stage, I don't know the difference between all of those. So let's put it that way, because and sometimes it's the same thing, but just given a different name. So let me just, what about is that within the thing? Let me just have a look at that.
It's on page 4 in Roles and Responsibilities.
Lots of words. Yes, okay. Several types of director based on the size and consistency of the board of directors. So as I said, it says there, executive directors are full-time employees of the company. And they are the ones that are, in effect, take responsibility for the running of the company. The non-executive directors, they're usually asked to be non-executive director because of an expertise, because they have an expertise in that industry, or even an expertise in finance or acquiring funding, etc. The chairman being responsible for board meetings. So the chairman is very definitely part of the board, whereas the managing director is the head of the directors. So those are like two distinct bodies. Often the chairman and managing director is the same person, but increasingly they're moving away from that combination of titles, because in a way it leaves the door open for, I guess, failures in governance. If you've got one person who is looking after lots of different roles, then it's easy to have a conflict of interest between the different functions that they have. For example, the chairman of the board has to be independent in looking at the business and how it's being run. Well, if it's the same person, then it's difficult for them to be independent. And so increasingly, I think there is this tendency away from combining chairman and MD together. Alternate or acting director, as it suggests there, alternate replacing them.
The manager.
I've never heard of an alternate director. And that's, I'm sure directors or managing directors in particular do get ill every now and again, or they want to take some sort of absence. But it's not something I've ever heard of in the companies I've dealt with. Let's put it that way. Usually, managing directors, they don't want to lose the control, and which they fought hard to get. So. Very few of them, I think, but as you can see there, it's clear. Nominee director, clearly the directors are responsible to, accountable to the shareholders, they being the owners of the company. And you've got there is a nominee director. The shareholders can be many. I mean, okay, there are usually large institutional investors, such as pension companies and insurance companies, who buy huge blocks of shares in businesses. So they, excuse me, they usually have a voice because they carry so much weight. However, there are clearly also many shareholders who have only a small shareholding, and often it seems like they don't have a voice because they can easily be outvoted. And so the nominee director is there to, I guess, represent the interests of these smaller shareholders in particular, to be an ear on the board of directors for those smaller shareholders, and to, I guess, represent their interests. They are still a director in that sense, but they are acting in a sense as the portal for the smaller shareholders in particular to get the ear of the board, because as I said, it's usually there's so many of them, which in itself is perhaps potentially a disadvantage, where there's so many people wanting to access the particular board of directors, and if you want to, let me just rephrase it. When you vote as a shareholder, you have the right to vote, obviously, in certain decisions that the company may make, and as a shareholder, you'll receive a voting form, and you tick it off, and you put it. Well, that's for the normal run-of-the-mill things. But if there is something much more specific that you want to have your say on, then you can go via the nominee director, who will, I guess, consider the point more thoroughly than if it just appears in a standard voting operation, in a standard ballot. Moving on, the shadow director. This is a term, I have to confess, this is a term I've not met before. I mean, reading anything that I can understand what they do, but it seems a slightly strange role to play, in that they are, okay, they're advising, as it says there, and they're directing, which I found a little bit strange. I'm going to have to look at this one a bit further. They are potentially providing direction, and may well be an individual or another company. It seems a little bit goes against, if you like, the standard procedure of having another individual company who's not associated, isn't part of the company, actually having the sort of influence that title is suggesting as shadow director. So I will. I'll find out more about that and let you know. Pop it in an email to everybody because it's just the sort of thing that I don't know might come up or something within your or you might be able to use certainly within the assignment that you write. Connected persons is the director's spouse or children, associated companies. I guess one of the big things of governance in relation to governance is the transparency. The fact that the dealings of the company are open and honest. And of course, if you have other people associated with directors who have interests elsewhere, then it is right that those interests are declared. I don't know if you know a great deal about the English parliamentary system, or the British parliamentary system, but every MP, every member of parliament who has any interest in another company, or has a brother who runs another particular business or something like that, they are asked to declare their interest. And that means that if anything comes up about that particular business, then that MP would not be asked to serve on any committee that looked at what the company might be doing or anything of that nature, because of course they have an interest in it by virtue of the relative that they have associated with the business, and that can create a conflict of interest. I have to say, just recently there have been a number of occasions where MPs have been accused, maybe that's the wrong word, accused of potentially having a conflict of interest, particularly over the pandemic, where we've seen obviously a lot of requirements for things like personal protective equipment, PPE, and there have been a couple of situations where there have been questions asked about why a particular contract was given to a particular company. Nothing has come of it. Maybe it will go further once we're through the pandemic. And it's the same thing in this case with the connected persons. Clearly, with a business, as the business, if you think of the business as equating to the government, then they could have a conflict of interest if they trade with or do business in some way with a company that is associated with one of these connected persons. So connected persons and directors, yeah. Okay, that's within the list. I will pursue this business about shadow director, and I've not heard of it. It sounds a little bit contrary to what you might understand people having connections with a company or with directors to be, and that's why I want to look at it further, and I will let you know. I will send an email.
Hi, Doctor.
Hello, sir. Yes.
My name is Said Taha. Could add about the shadow director or about all of the director. The director here is about how the mission in this company. If he coming for making decision, he it's executive director. If coming for just advice, he shadow. Not if and from the board, just advice as consulted out of the company, out of the board of the company. If he coming just for coordination between the meeting, it's called about the not excuse direct chairman. Chairman, it's about
Right.
for coordinating the meeting. Just he not excuse, not make a decision. You're not executive, and it's
Right.
just making with the chairman. Who the board of the meeting have a lot of experience and could make a decision and perfect.
Okay. Thank you, Saeed. Did I pronounce your name right, Saeed? Yeah. Say again for me, please.
Said.
Said. Thank you. Please excuse me if I don't get the pronunciation right for first time. I will concentrate on all the time. I don't like saying people's names incorrectly. Your name is important. I want to get it right when I can. Said.
Thanks.
So, I mean, thank you. Thank you very much indeed for coming in with that. So are you saying that this is something you've had experience of within your company?
Yes, we have
Okay.
our company, we have different type of director about the mission.
Yes.
It depended on the mission of the director. If he coming for making decision, is executive director. Is coming for making just meeting and coordinating the meeting, is chairman.
Yes.
And if have advertising out the board of the meeting, is shadow.
Right. As I said, I've not heard that title before, and to me that would be an advisor. But you know, it doesn't matter what the name is, so long as we get clear what the function is. But fine. It was the description you've given is effectively what it would appear to be from what we have on the paperwork. As I said, it just, for me, that function has always been like an advisor or special advisor, certainly within governmental terms, rather than having the director word attached to their title, which infers something a little bit more serious. So thank you. If that's the case, then obviously we've got the explanation. But I'll still have a look for myself, because I think I should be aware of it, certainly. But as far as the two separate bodies are concerned, obviously, as you said, Sahed, the chairman is responsible for the board meeting and making sure there, whereas the directors on the board of directors are responsible for effectively the running of the business.
Okay.
Is that okay? I mean, yes, go ahead, please.
Yes, can we say that the managing director is an executive director?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
okay.
because they are still they're part of the board of directors. They lead the board of directors. Whether or not they're also part of the board of governors is a different matter. As I said, there's a tendency to move away from that, and the managing director, usually appointed by the board of governors, has to be said, but they are still carrying out a function of running the business on a day-to-day basis.
And also about the contract. It's about the HR contract with the director. It's depend if have a contract for full-time, part-time. So this will determine what the type of director. Some director have full-time as executive in the company. This was contract with HR. Sometimes have part-time just for advertising. So the contract of HR determines the type of director.
Yeah, that'll define the difference between an executive and a non-executive director.
Yeah.
I mean, a non-executive director can be part-time. Sometimes it's, maybe 2 days a month. It's as little as that.
Yeah.
Others are more active. And I think, as I said before, there was recently a move to not have so many non-executive directors, or maybe even them not spending as much time, if you like, within the business, because they are not as accountable as the executive directors. And that therefore means that the shareholders are potentially in a vulnerable position. If you've got people who have not been formally appointed as an employee of the company, making potentially a larger number of decisions about the company. So there was certainly that move recently. So, is that okay? I will I will pursue this thing about the shadow director, but Syed has, given us a good heads up about what it is, and I will check from my end about this this term, shadow director. Anything that's shadow, you're always naturally suspicious about. It may be a completely innocent title, but the shadow almost suggests that they are not visible in some way, shape, or form. So, okay. Anybody have any other questions? I'd rather us, answer questions and discuss things rather than simply wading our way through things that you can read as well. Do you have any other specific questions? What did you feel about this part of it? Is it relevant as far as the environment in which you operate? I mean, I know you're saying corporate structures, but yeah.
Yeah, sure.
When it comes to the legislation, I imagine there may be some differences there. Did you look at it in terms? You look at it in terms of British legislation, or have you looked at that in terms of legislation from the particular country that you're based in? Anybody? Did you just look at?
It talks about legislation in the UK, right?
Yes, and that's what I, when I was working through this myself, I thought, well, okay, that's fine. It's nice to know about that particular act, but how relevant is that to you? And I think if you haven't already, it would be good to look at your own country's legislation and see what equivalents they have. I mean, I imagine that all your countries will have some form of, I think the UK sometimes gets particularly hung up on legislating for things. So there may not be as much as in the UK, but the question mark is there enough? And that's the main thing. So has any of you looked at the legislation in your own country? As far as
I think that we share like the minimum wage.
Yes.
Like the probationary periods. But it's different here from 3 to 6 months here in Palestine.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Contracts.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure about. I've read something about oral contract or oral agreement.
Yes. Verbal. Verbal versus written. Yeah. A contract can be verbal as well as being written. It's safer on both sides if it's written clearly, because my interpretation of what you say may well be different to what you mean. But nevertheless, it can be oral or verbal, whichever word we want to use, both the same in fact. I don't know the exact proportions, but I would have thought that oral contracts are a small percentage. Certainly, I would say within the UK. I don't know about your own countries. There may well be more there, but we have a tendency to want to write everything down, particularly because within contracts there are both explicit, if you like, and implied terms. Have you come across this difference between the express and implied terms within contracts?
Yeah. I didn't understand it well, the implied terms.
Okay. Well, within a written contract, and indeed it can be the same within a verbal contract as well, you're going to say certain things. the employee's name, their date of birth, where they're working, what the hours may be, what the role is. But then there are certain other elements of the work you will do within the company that are almost taken as understood, taken as being read, if you like, taken as being read, because I suppose if you put everything in there, then we'd have a contract that was about 93 pages long. But these are things that, as individuals, we would almost take for granted within the work. For example, there people have an implied term might be the right to be consulted on decisions that affect you. That's not going to be put down in a contract, but that would be an implied term, if you like, within any either verbal or written contract. And if you look on, I think it's page 3 of the section on employment law and legal aspects, we've got there the implied terms. Some of the most common implied terms are demotion. That you wouldn't. It's not the sort of thing you want to discuss with a new employee. Is that we'll demote you, we'll take you down a grade. But there is usually with every contractor an implied term that if you do something wrong, depending on the severity, that you as a halfway house almost between employment and being sacked, then you may be demoted.
Yeah.
In other words, move down the scale. And the second one there, you've got language used. That refers to the implied term of that you will be courteous, that people will treat people courteously within the business. You can't define that. You can't define that in a contract because what's courteous and what's not courteous. It's one of those things that's understood between people, and the way within your cultures you are courteous to people compared to say the British culture, it'll be slightly different. Just because we have different cultures and different ways of doing things. I know I've sort of worked in Saudi Arabia and Oman for short periods, and even the greetings are substantially different. We're very standoffish, we shake hands, whereas Middle Eastern are much more tactile in that sense. So, and it would apply there on language. And you can see those there. Bullying and harassment. Do you know what is meant by bullying and harassment?
Yes.
That it is implied, but then there is also something called the Equality Act 2010, which is one of these all-encompassing laws. It pulled together a lot of the laws that existed within the UK in one fell swoop, and that's all to do with how people may be discriminated against, and bullying and harassment come into that in terms of what constitutes bullying and what constitutes harassment, because they are terms that it is quite difficult to define. One person's joke may be another person's bullying, and so it's quite difficult to make a categoric definition. But there is within the Equality Act, there is the definition of it, and therefore it being implied within a contract is largely because we have a definition elsewhere, and therefore we're not going to make it very clear here that that definition applies to everybody in that sense. Grievances and disciplinary, the last two you've got there. Again, there will be my guess would be in pretty much, certainly within every business I've ever worked with, a grievance procedure and a disciplinary procedure, and it being very clearly laid down within those two procedures, the routine to be followed. And I don't know what involvement you have with something like grievances and disciplinary, particularly disciplinary. Nobody likes getting involved in them because it means something's gone wrong. But apparently, certainly within our systems, more cases of discipline fail because the people who, the management, let's call them that, did not follow the procedure than the person was guilty in effect. So it is a tremendously complex process because of all the laws that sit around it, a tremendously complex process that it is easy to get wrong. And if you get it wrong, then the person who is being disciplined can usually find a way out of it, if you like, by virtue of not following the same procedure, which, okay, the procedure should be followed, most certainly, because it's set up to make it fair for both parties, the company and the individual. Sometimes it seems unfair that somebody gets off on a technicality, but in that sense, the company only has itself to blame for not following the procedure correctly. But I've been involved in a number of disciplinary procedures, and they are a minefield. And it's one of those things that you always want the professionals there with you, like the people from HR. You always want those with you advising. You still have to do it as a manager within the business. You have to do it, but you have to have the advice. I don't know what the procedure would be within your countries, but I'm guessing that you have equivalent procedures, discipline and grievance and bullying and harassment. Is that the case, that you have all of those procedures within businesses, but also legal, the statutes for it? Do they exist in your countries, in Palestine? And incidentally, can I just ask where you are all from?
Palestine and Jordan.
Palestine and Jordan, yeah.
Yeah.
So, or the four of you that I can see on, you're from either Palestine or Jordan. Is that correct?
80% of Jordan is from Palestine.
Okay. Yes. Okay. What's it?
Yes, we mean.
The two countries are beside each other. Exactly.
Yes.
Like
Oh, yes. No, I know they're sort of beside each other. I just wondered if how many people were from Palestine and how many people were from Jordan. I understand all the sort of complexities of borders in that part of the world. But I guess if you describe yourself as Palestinian, then presumably you're born in Palestine versus Jordanian. So.
Oh, almost of Jordanian, original from Palestine.
Okay. Yeah.
Refugees.
Right.
You
yes.
know, some of them were refugees.
Yes.
Yeah, and some of them moved to work in the Gulf, for example, and then they got the residency in Jordan. Like me, I'm Palestinian Jordanian.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I remember when I worked in Saudi Arabia, not for very long, but a lot of people from Egypt and Syria and Palestine, and they go to work there. And I guess a similar thing happens there as well. Although Saudi Arabians seem to be now getting much harder on people coming into the country to work, certainly.
Yeah, but they didn't give nationality to people.
No.
I was born in Saudi, but I don't have their nationality. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I understand they were going through a process of Saudification. That's what we talk.
Yeah.
Saudification, which is a really strange word.
That's the term.
Yeah, increasing. I think it's because there were so many people from countries around Saudi Arabia going to work in there. Somebody said, "Oh, we don't have any jobs for the Saudi Arabian residents. Let's go through Saudification." But that starts to get political. Don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, no. But I love it. I love it. It's a lovely part of the world, and I haven't met anybody there who wasn't friendly. And it's
In Saudi?
Well, and Oman. I was in Oman, and
Oman?
Yes.
Muscat?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Muscat and sorry, there's I'm just trying to think of the word. Begins with S. Can't remember. Sorry, it's where there is a large desalination plant. I'll find out where it is.
And where were you in Saudi?
In Riyadh and
Riyadh.
Al-Qabah.
Abha?
Al-Qabah.
Al-Qabah? What is this?
In the northeast. Northeast.
Okay.
I think it's Al-Khoba.
Al-Khabar, I guess.
Khobar. Al-Khobar.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes, this is where I was born. I was born in Al-Khobar.
Right. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. Actually, I should have used, because I live in Wales, and Wales has its own language, and we have sounds like you have in Arabic there. For example, okay, we have a very long place name. I will say it. Are you ready? Okay, sit down.
Okay.
Llanfair Pwllgwyn Gillgo Gerill Windrobwll Llantysilio Go.
Oh my God.
That is one place.
It's one place.
That is one place.
It's a German one.
So again?
Yeah, it looks nice.
Yeah, it's and when you said Al-Khobar, is it Al-Khobar?
Al-Khobar, yeah.
Al-Khobar. In Welsh they have double L, LL, and you pronounce that, and the CH is, and the double D is L. So a little bit like Arabic, and it's much more about the sound than it is about the word, if you understand what I mean. So yeah, Llanfair Pwllgwyn Gillgo Gerill Windrobwll Llantysilio Go. I think there's 26 letters in it or something like that. And it's all made up of, for example, Llan, the start of it, double L-A-N, that means church. Vair, F-A-I-R, well, that is a sort of corruption of the word Mair, M-A-I-R, and that's a girl's name, Mary. So Llanfair is Mary's church.
Yeah.
So it's made up of all that. Anyway, this is not what we were here for, but nevertheless, we were talking about the difference between sort of implied terms within a contract and verbal versus written. It is still a contract. It is still a contract, even though it might be verbal, and people can still sue on that. In other words, if the business breaks the contract in whatever way, then the employee can sue. It clearly becomes a little bit more difficult because there isn't anything written down. But if it's been an accepted practice, if you like, for employees within their contracts, then that, in a sense, gives it credibility. But much better. And I've not encountered verbal contracts within the sort of businesses that I've worked on. Often they exist, obviously, in smaller businesses where there is a more personal maybe relationship between employer and employee. And you have a sort of an element of trust. There was a time, obviously, way gone, when there was no written contracts; they were all verbal, and we had the saying, "My word is my bond." That effectively sums up the fact that if I say it, then I commit to it. And that was the case, and still is the case in some small parts. I'm just trying to think. I'm just trying to think where it is. I think it's in something like the. There's an element of it within the legal profession, and there's also an element of it within trading, stock market, where if traders do a deal and they shake hands on it, that's it. It's binding, and I don't know how often it's tested, so I don't know how binding it is, but that was certainly the way in the past. But of course, once you start getting organizations that are larger, more complex, then that sort of system won't carry the complexity that contracts then need to have. So that's why they all tend to be written now. But there are still obviously those implied terms, and they tend to be terms relating to behavior and how people will behave, and how the company will behave towards those people. Is anything else?
Okay. But verbal contracts don't guarantee the right of the employee nowadays.
Verbal contracts, or
Yeah.
all. No, well, they.
Maybe the employer denied that.
Let's put it this way: they're supposed to, but that's what I'm saying. These days the contracts are usually so complex and so backed, if you like, by legislation that that it's very difficult to sustain a contract, a verbal contract, on the basis that management changes and they interpret something in a particular way, and if that's the case, and management has changed during the time that you've been employed by the company, then the new management may have a different perspective on the role that you are performing and the environment in which you're performing it. And if it's not written down, then you're right, the rights of the employee can very definitely be jeopardized. In some cases, not because the management do it intentionally, just that there isn't anything to tell them what should be the right way. But as I said, I can't imagine within say a large organization, I don't know the organizations you work for, but in a large organization that it wouldn't survive with a verbal contract. People would probably be coming and going much more quickly because they, as you quite rightly say, they don't feel as though their rights are being upheld. So, because there isn't any clarity on it. So.
And also, the writing contract is better as reference. If we have a conflict, so return to the right contract about how the agreement, and is the reference for two parties.
Yes. I mean, that's right. If the contract is written, then it's a permanent record. I mean, unless there's a fire or something like that. But these days, obviously, it'd be digital. So on the basis as it's written, then whoever changes, whether managers change in one way, shape, or form, that survives, and therefore it's a protection for both. That's what the contract is, not just to protect the worker; it's to protect the company as well. And obviously that provides the safety, if you like, for both parties. Syed, was that the point you were making, or?
The point is the contract is reference. The main mission of the contract is reference. If I have a conflict, return back the two party in the contract and read what's the term to ensure that they are in agreement.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's the check, isn't it? If something's wrong, we go back to the contract and check what is the right situation. Should you be working that many hours, or should you only be working this many hours? I know that's a bit simplistic, but that's an example of what would be in the contract anyway. Have you? Go ahead, please. Yes.
I have an example about verbal agreement, but between companies.
Right.
Yes, a relative of mine work in carpeting. He imports carpets from Turkey. And he had a verbal agreement with a Turkish company that he's the only like wholesale distributor here in Palestine for their company. Yes. So, and that was for years. And then he discovered that they had another agreement with another company, So what he did, that was verbal, and that was the problem. So what he did, that he didn't tell them, and he ordered a huge order that needed 2 to 3 months to be prepared.
Right.
And then when they said, okay, it's ready, he said, okay, I don't need it. Just send it to the other company, And that was a surprise for them. They apologized. They sent a group of employees to apologize here to Palestine, and he didn't want to deal with them anymore. So that was smart.
Well done. I think that's great. Oh no, that's very good. I shouldn't be saying it's very good, really, should I? But I think that's very good. Good for your relative. Uncle or what relation to you?
Like an uncle,
Like an uncle, yeah. Wow, good for your
but
uncle.
Sometimes
that's great. Excuse me.
Sorry. You can do again. But I want to take something. Actually, we can make some kind of variable agreement in our work. Sometimes let's say it's happened for us daily that we have agreement with our boss or manager about kind of taxes. We do it in hand for that. Sometimes we have a variable agreement, sometimes between our managers in some kinds of situations. It depends how is the task or the things that they ask for us.
Right. So they let me just summarize and see if I understood what you're saying. So you have an agreement, a variable agreement between you and your manager or management. What does the agreement relate to?
It's related in different topics. Sometimes we can say in some kind of tasks that they ask me to do it, for example.
Yes.
Sometimes about my hours work. This is one, for example.
So forgive me for saying this. I don't mean to. So effectively, you have no contract at all. I mean, because they can vary anything at any time. Is that correct?
No. Actually, we have. No. We in our agreement we have that I have to work 8 hours in the day, but sometimes you can say that my managers, we can say, okay, I will finish 7 hours in the day, for example.
Yes.
This is a variable agreement between me and him. It's independent. Sometimes if I work something of a list of tasks, for example, I take out agreement that, okay, it will be to hide some things, for example, not to show all that we wanted. It's independent.
Right. So, okay, let me just summarize again. So you might have an agreement that you'll work 8 hours a day, but sometimes you'll work 7. Does that mean another day you'll work 9? In other words, does it even it out?
No. No.
Okay.
Yes, it's flexibility hours. You can say they have a flexibility hours work.
Yeah. And that flexibility is quite common in that sense. Have you heard of the term 0 hours contract?
No, this is the first time that I hear about this kind of contract.
This is something that has grown up, certainly within the UK, and I think in other places as well. And whereas in a normal contractual arrangement for employment, as you've indicated, yes, you have a certain number of hours, you're contracted for that. Yes, there's always flexibility in the sense of if I do some overtime, but I can go a bit early because I've got to go to the dentist or something like that. So there is that flexibility, but generally it's 8 hours or 7.5 or whatever it is. And obviously, you're getting paid at a certain rate. It may be, divided down into a rate per hour, but when you multiply it up, it equals the salary or the wages that you are due to get. But with 0 hours contracts, there is no guarantee of you getting any hours work in any particular period. So let's put it on a week, and you normally would have 40 hours, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. Then they could issue a contract where you had no hours, but you still had to turn up and be told whether or not you needed to pay, whether or not you needed to carry out work on that particular week. Now, the reason why organizations are doing this is because of cost. Clearly, they are not committed to paying anybody when there is not work for them to do, or doesn't appear to be work for them to do. But of course, for the employee, that's tremendously insecure. And if you're somebody who has a family, maybe has a property that they need to pay for their borrowing on, then clearly that creates very, very uncertain times. And a lot of employees are suffering in relation to those contracts, because generally, whilst they might get employment, then maybe for a week, then they don't. What if you take a week's salary out of a month? You're reducing it by 25%. Most people require that money, and so it's putting a lot of people in hardship. There is now some legislation. I told you we legislate for lots of things, but this is a good thing, which I don't think it completely prevents 0 hours contracts. They were just mushrooming throughout the workforce, but there are now many more restrictions. There are some industries where potentially you need to have 0 hours contracts just because it doesn't work on a normal basis of continuous production. And therefore, I think in those situations, they are allowed to still have these formal contracts. Although even there, I don't think they're favoured, because they seem so one-sided. But as I say, in a lot of places now, these things have been thrown out. But before, any employer could basically say, right, we're changing your contract to 0 hours, which and the employee had little recourse, they couldn't do much about it, because they're one person against the organization. And many therefore accepted those 0 hours contracts because there was nothing else. If the employment situation in their part of the world, their part of the country was not good, they couldn't go anywhere else anyway to get employment. So they took the 0 hours contract, but weren't happy about it, obviously. So,
Professor, maybe it's useful for an expert to work as 0 hour because he will not be judged with the specific hour time.
Yes, it's not tied to a particular organization. I mean, it's almost like being a consultant. And you're right. Somebody's got an expertise that they can market elsewhere, then something like a 0 hours contract would be beneficial because he's not then tied to working for an organization that is perhaps not paying him as much as he could get elsewhere. So, but for the majority of people these contracts were being used for, they weren't in that position. They were ordinary employees in a factory or whatever it was, and quite clearly they can't go anywhere else for maybe the short time that they're not needed by that particular company. And the reality was they didn't know until, say, the beginning of the week when they were going to be needed. So you couldn't plan and say, okay, I'll go and get a job there for 2 days and while I'm doing my 3 days here, because no other company would take them on that quickly for just 2 days. So they were a bad idea. So, but going back to your situation, forgive me, Meza, was it? Hello?
Yes, I am Meza.
Meza, thank you. Yeah, so the contract that you have then, is it purely verbal? Purely verbal? In other words, you haven't got anything written down?
Actually, I'm working in public sector.
Okay.
In government, in IT government, but at the same time, we have kind of rules that have to give the permissions for the manager in variable way to make such kind of agreement in different. For example, as I told you, it's our work, for example, one of them. One day I can work from home.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Doctor, it's about this. I think it's about management, the team, not about the agreement or contract. They are a management of the team, have a flexibility of the time. This is under umbrella of management teams.
I see what you're saying, Syed, but I guess if Meza has no protection, then against maybe an unscrupulous manager, then that does become a contractual thing. I mean, you're right in the sense of, yes, if it's an agreement with the manager, then that is about the individual manager's way of operating. But if it's a policy of the department, you said you're in public sector, if it's a policy of that particular department, it goes beyond a team management thing to being an organizational thing. Maybe it's not, the sort of time to discuss that in detail, but Meza, did you say that it is the organization or the department you work in, if you're in the public sector? Did you say this is prevalent?
Yes, I'm in the public sector.
So it happens across the whole department? Yeah?
Yes, sometimes I think, because I know this kind of situation happened in the public sector more in the private. You can maybe make a viable agreement with your manager in the way that you work, for example. It's independent. For example, the hours work, sometimes the tasks, you do it. Maybe you can discuss with him, for example, a situation, and you decide what you have to do, and he approves, yeah, go ahead, for example, support you.
Yeah.
It's independent in different situations. Sometimes it's work hours. I give an example. Sometimes in the task, not actually you have agreement between you and your manager private that, okay, let's talk like this way with others in that kind of meeting, for example. It's, as I told you, the situations let you make some kind of variable agreement with your.
Yeah. So in some ways, it sounds like it's, you know, it's a little bit of both in terms of, from what you said, Saad, about it being a management practice. I guess if Mesa can agree with her manager to vary the way she's working at a particular point in time, then of course that, as you say, it sounds like how you're managing the team. But if it then is something that is done across the department, albeit on an individual basis, then it becomes an organizational practice and starts to fall into the area of contract. Although there isn't any contract there, it's just a verbal agreement. Mesa, can I ask you, are you happy with that?
Actually, not too much. Yeah. Sometimes it depends on the situation. When I have, for example, I have a story that happened in the last week. We have working and we just say that it's okay, that's what we have to do, and he tell me variable agreement with me and him. Okay, this is what we send for the persons, for the emails that we have sent an emails for another for the ministry that we working on for kind of information, and we decide that okay, this is what we want, and when we go there, they change. The variable agreement between me and my manager changed when we go to the meeting, and this is the big problem.
Yeah. That's obviously the drawback. I mean, okay, the way you work at any point in time is going to fluctuate according to the needs of the business. Let's put it that way. But there should be, in a sense, a base level, a benchmark that I think, Syed, as you said, you can return to for reference, which you don't have, Meza. So therefore, they can almost do anything, and you have to accept it. Now, that's why I asked you, you're happy. If you're happy with it, then in some ways that's the agreement working. Both parties are happy with it. But if one party is not happy with it, then clearly that verbal arrangement is not working for you, and therefore is perhaps unsatisfactory. Full stop. Okay, it's working for them.
Because sometimes when the situation is related to the work, it's not good to have a variables agreement. It's not work.
No.
Because maybe they will change their opinion after that.
Yes.
I took this, sorry for say that, but I'm talking from my experience. I have like this a lot of situations, and it's not easy, because after that you have to know how to handle and solve any problems that you will get it from this kind of agreement.
Yeah. Sorry.
Can I give her an advice?
Yes, please do. Please do.
Yes. After you sit with your manager and you have an agreement of like some things you want to do, I prefer that you send him an email, okay, with everything that you said, okay, and send it, and he should agree on it, okay, that he receives what that I remember that we were doing this when I was working with NGOs, a memo, you know?
Yeah.
So this is
sorry, I do like this kind of behavior. I do like this. I send an email and I write a memos to approve that we discuss, and we have to discuss about, and we have a connect that we have 1, 2, 3, and I send emails, but sometimes doesn't work. Actually, in public sector, it's not like other.
Yeah, I work in
sectors.
public sector, and sometimes, like, I can't tell you to ignore. In public
Yeah.
sectors, you can ignore.
What you
Yeah.
suffer, because I am the same. Actually, I'm
And do
working
whatever
more
you want
than.
to. And your
Yeah,
manager
I know.
can't do anything.
Yeah. Let me
Yes,
just take,
whatever.
Just be careless.
let me just take the other people who've got their hand up to speak. If I can just take the comments from the other people who have to speak. Malak.
Yes.
Can we just take a break to pray?
Yes, yes, I think we were getting to that point now, certainly. So, okay. Yes, let's take a break. What time is it with you? It will be something like 18:24?
6 past 3:30.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
6:24.
6:24, 18:34. Are you okay with, let's say, 10 minutes, or do you want 15 minutes?
No, just 10 or 5.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm good with 10.
You're good with 10.
I-
Okay, let's say 10. So
Professor?
let's be back at 6:35.
Can we enable
Okay.
the chat?
Sorry.
Yes, let me see. Well, if I can, let me just check if I can. Because I'm not sure that I have, chat disabled. I'm not sure if I can, because I didn't set the meeting up. Is there somebody on from the university who can enable chat?
Sorry, but now it's 5:25 in my iPhone, so it's just me or it's the
Yes,
global
it is
time?
5:25 here.
It may be you. It's 16:25 here, 4:25. But my understanding was that this was timed on Jerusalem time as 18. So it should be 18:25
Yeah.
now.
Actually, time has been changed last night in
Thank you.
Jordan.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm late.
Okay.
I just came up like 25 minutes ago. So you started earlier than
yeah.
Will?
Starting 5.
No, we
Yes,
start at.
it's fine. I started the Zoom meeting at 5 my timing, like a man timing. I thought it's the same with Jerusalem.
Yes, it's 5.
Yes,
Now
me
in
too.
now in Jerusalem it's 6:26.
Yeah.
No, it's in Jordan. It's 5:25, 26.
Yeah, so you're 1 hour late.
Maybe
Uh,
between
But I want to
1
say
hour.
something.
Always the lectures started at 2 p.m. GMT standard.
Okay.
Okay. What did you want to say though?
That's why I couldn't catch up with you.
Okay.
Actually,
Professor.
I just I felt like so.
That's not. Sorry about that.
having
Sorry
a
about
huge
that. Do you want to?
misunderstanding. Actually, this is my first lecture here, so I'm waited that someone will contacted with me to give me the password and how to access to the Liverpool College student account. Still no one talked to me about it.
Can I suggest, therefore, either you speak to me now whilst everybody goes and has their break,
Yes.
Or we do that at the end, and whichever way around. I'm happy whichever. If you want to stay on now and we have a conversation while the other people go and have their break.
Yes, sure. But if you want to have your break, I can wait. It's okay.
Okay.
If you want, I am here.
Yeah, no, we'll talk now because it's important.
Yes, I am here.
Let's do this now. Okay, so everybody else, let's now take an extra couple of minutes. So let's be back at, I guess it will be 6:37. So around then, 6:37. Okay.
Okay.
All right, and then I can talk to my friend here. Where's she gone?
Yes, here I am.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, we are here now.
Oh, sorry. You Meza, is that you? Are you involved as well in that?
No, it's only.
Like, yeah, Malak, I am with you. I am my son. Malak is actually with us, doctor.
Okay. Oh, what, in the same place?
Yes, actually, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm ready to hear you, doctor, if you want to say anything.
No, I was just, if I can take your full name. This is, forgive me, because this is my first time running one of these sessions as well. And
Yes,
so.
and this is my first time attending.
Yeah, no. So, well, we're learning together, aren't we? We're learning together. But my main priority is to get this right.
What you want to learn?
Actually, it makes no sense that the timing difference between Amman and Jerusalem is like 1 hour gap. I thought it's the same when it's Jerusalem timing. So, yeah.
It was confusing because when we entered the calendar, they said that the lecture will start at 3. Then when I tried to connect, they said it will start at 4. So I thought in our timing at Amman and Palestine, it will start at 5. So I also being late to enter the lecture. That's what.
And actually, I was so ready since 4 p.m. my timing, which is like 5 p.m. And when it started, and I said no, I will be waiting 1 hour ago. So yeah.
Oh, I am sorry. I don't know how the
it's okay. It's okay. It's my fault. Yeah, it happens.
No, I mean,
the most important thing that
you need to have an apology from somebody, and I'm giving that to you immediately now.
It's okay. It's recorded, so I can catch it later.
Yeah.
And for second time, you could follow up WhatsApp group. So we ask how many
times. Yes, I want to ask you about it, but
I asked how many time rest for the beginning of the lecture, and they reply to me 1.5 hour. So I understand how it's the time, the exact.
Oh, okay.
What WhatsApp group? We are not on the WhatsApp group too.
I'm not.
Not me actually.
I'm so new to this. I just.
Can I just say something? Because everybody is talking over each other, which means that we can't all hear. So I think it's best if one person talks and then we pass it over to somebody else. Just because that we'll sort this out quicker. So, what is the situation? Syed, were you saying that you're not the organizer of this? No.
No, actually no. Actually, I think that if you go to the U dashboard as a student in Liverpool, you can go to the calendar, which show you the time for our lectures. You can go internally the calendar and you can find the time for.
Yes.
Yes, but I think because they have a difference between the time zone between Jordan and Jerusalem, because Jordan changed their time for the winter.
Winter timing, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
And the UK changed it tonight as well. We changed it tonight.
Yeah. Which makes kind of confused for us.
It's okay. It will be like 2 GMT every time, 2 p.m. GMT. So yeah,
yes,
I can handle with this next time.
But yeah, do you know how to access the calendar?
No.
Yes, yes. If you need any help, we can help you. If you want, just connect with us, and we can tell you how to use it and how to use the dashboard, because you can find another things for you. It's the material and the assignment, a lot of things that you have to know, and go to your dashboard, your account in the dashboard, Liverpool.
Okay.
If I, let me just see if I can quickly share. Can I share my screen?
Professor.
Yes, I have the video that recorded how to access, but I need my password and my ID for access.
You can connect with the Liverpool's college. They will help you about this points. Believe me, because I have like this situation before, and I have connect with them by emails, or they have a number in the WhatsApp that you can connect with them, and they will help you. Believe me, they have someone called Mazen. He's responsible about this point.
Yes, most certainly. Let me
We
just.
hope that Mazen contact us when there's update through the WhatsApp group, like the winter time.
Actually, I think not all the persons in the WhatsApp group. For example, I'm not in the WhatsApp group that you're talking about, but because I check all the time.
No one.
And
Can you see?
I think
Can you see this icon here?
Yes,
on
I
my
can.
screen.
Yes.
Okay, so
It's an app.
yeah, if you do this, it sort of takes you through. Come on, there we go. So this takes you through to here. You can get sign on from sorry, forgive me, I didn't catch the lady's name, to get in touch with Liverpool colleges. But when you get your sort of sign on details, it will take through to there's an area where you can have all your courses, your dashboard, and with me. Okay, and it will also show you your calendar, which obviously this here is today's. And if you click on this, let me do it again. Sorry, a bit too quick. Then it brings up. Let me just expand
the Zoom link.
Yeah, it brings up the room link and the ID.
Yes, actually, I can deal with this because it's quite similar to the to my last university e-learning system. So it's quite the same. But I need to know my like my
you need to sign on. You need your sign on
and the password to access to my dashboard.
Yes. So I think it's probably is best either maybe not calling, but emailing somebody at the Liverpool colleges, and then they will be able to give you the sign-on instruction. And then once you can, as you say, sorry, say again, please.
There are messages on her profile. If she opens her profile, there are tab messages. She can send the inquiry that she wants.
Oh, so she had messages, so she knows where to write to. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it's in her profile.
Yeah, okay. I guess I can catch with this. Yeah. I'm sending the messages right now.
Okay, that's good.
Malik, I want to ask you something.
You want to ask me something? Yes.
I don't know.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, I want to ask her if she has this.
Forgive me, but your sound is.
Malik, did you receive?
Forgive me.
This will be better.
Your sound is breaking up a lot.
If you could the chat able. See, there are some message between the teams. You could.
I looked at chat and it was disabled. Then it was enabled, and when I last looked, it was disabled again. So let me just because I didn't set up the meeting, I cannot enable the chat.
Maybe Liverpool,
Liverpool, he can enable the chat. I think so.
Yes, there's usually
because he's the host.
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. There's usually somebody on from the colleges, and they can enable the chat. But as you see down here, the chat is disabled at the moment. But it was enabled, then it came. Let me just check if I can.
You could contact direct with Liverpool colleague on the chat, and can open or able the chat.
Yes, I will try
Actually,
to do
you
so.
need the permission.
But still, yes, I still need the permission because yeah. So who is that?
Actually, excuse me, they have to make you give you the permissions to open the chat if you are the hosting for this meeting.
Yes,
but as I know that
it happens.
Liverpool, yes.
I know that it's happened a couple of times when I've been sitting in with Matt Brown when he's been delivering, and there's usually somebody on from the colleges, and obviously you've got there the logo of the colleges. So I'm hoping that whoever that is can give me permission, please, or can enable the chat for us. Can you do that? Whoever is there.
This will be perfect because it will be make the noise and the conflicts between our token chatting. It would be better to open that chat, but it would be a problem.
The recording. Let me just see if I can find somebody. With me one moment. I'll get into this.
They must give you the permission to be the host.
Yes. I have to say on the ones that I've sat in on with Matt, they sometimes are a little bit slow doing it, but you know, they sometimes get there. Let me see what I can do. Whilst we're on the break, and we should be back by
Dr. So the recorded lectures will be on my dashboard. After getting access to my dashboard, can I find the lectures I missed?
Yes.
Yes, in Liverpool.
I'm not sure how long they stay. Does anybody know how long they stay on?
For a long time. It's a long time. It's available all the time, 24 hours, 7 days, and you will get back anytime you want in the dashboard.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure.
And
that,
the material.
Go ahead.
And the material, actually, she has she will find it in the dashboard.
Yes.
And she read it, and she must read it because she has to do the kind of. They have a process to tell them that I have read it and finish this kind of modules to go and do the assignment that they have requirement from us to finish it. That's it. And Malik, if you need any, just tell us and we can connect with you. But unfortunately, they have no kind of chatting that we can send you any contact information to talking with you about.
Please. Can I give you my cell phone number so you can add me on the WhatsApp group?
Actually, I don't know about this WhatsApp group. Actually, I don't remember in this WhatsApp group.
Who's on the WhatsApp group? Because it might be.
I am in WhatsApp group.
Okay, if we can't get chat enabled now, then maybe you can type things through WhatsApp, and I can see them if I get into WhatsApp as well.
And could the Liverpool assistant hear about everything and every tips? But now it's about the lecture, so you could continue on the lecture, and we can chat after that about the accounts and.
Yes, certainly.
Where we can chat.
Excuse me, I'm thinking.
We have a group. We have WhatsApp group. We have here chat. We have a Liverpool colleague. We have. I am.
We don't have any information about that, Said. I don't have these groups.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
And these groups in Jordan or where?
Ladies
and
gentlemen, can I just say something? Again, we're all talking over each other, so let's just. I agree that we need to move on and look at the lecture because obviously some other people are here for that. But in connection with that, if we cannot get chat enabled, and it's still disabled, I'll try to contact somebody to do it. Then what I thought was, if we can all get access to the WhatsApp group, and that would mean somebody who's on there inviting those who aren't on there into it, then we can use that for the chat. What do we think of that?
Yes, yes. Everything is with Liverpool colleague. They are connected with us and put us in WhatsApp, what's one group. So connecting direct with Liverpool colleague, they added you in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah, I don't believe I'm in the WhatsApp group.
Andy, can I pass? I have a question, please. What is the difference between the 0-hour contract and the freelance contract?
Can I? Okay. Before I answer that question, can I just sort of draw a little bit of a line under where we are now? Okay. Syed, do you have the WhatsApp group?
Yes, yes.
Can you invite me to the WhatsApp group if I give you my telephone number?
Yes.
Okay, if I give me a telephone number, if you could invite me.
Just wait 1 minute. I want to give my phone.
Okay, okay. I'll be with you in a moment, the person who asked the questions. What's your first name, please?
My name is Omer. I'm from Jordan.
Okay, Omer, I will be with you very shortly. My apologies for the delay, but we've sort of got this issue with connection and chat. And I want to just draw a line under that, and then I'll come back to answering your question. My apologies for that. Okay.
No worries, Professor.
Okay. I mean, whilst Syed is. Tell you what, I might. Okay, whilst we're waiting for Syed, let me just, the difference between 0 hours and freelance. Fundamentally, I don't think there is a difference, except that the person on a freelance contract, in a sense, wants to be on it. Because, as we said before, they may, usually they have an expertise. It may be in, I don't know, some artistic thing, maybe they have a particular skill, and they want to be able to go to different employers. Hello.
The WhatsApp group is Strategy Management MBA. It's managed by the name Ayman. It's from Liverpool colleague who could add anyone to this group. This group have to discuss about the project and the MBA and this and everything about the MBA.
Yes, yes. No, it's right that you all should be on there, definitely.
Yes.
Okay.
Almost that.
Let's. I will ask somebody if they can now enable chat for one thing, but also to sort out the WhatsApp group so that everybody's on it. We're not going to solve that immediately, so I don't want to have more time talking around that. I'd rather carry on with the questions relating to the topic, and I will very quickly sort out this business about particularly chat if you want to be putting questions in there, but also the WhatsApp group for the future. So let me, if we can, come back to the question you asked about freelance versus 0 hours. As I said, it's a question of, do I want to be on it? Effectively, they both have a system whereby you work at whatever hours are agreed, generally in a short time before while you work them. It may be on the Monday, it may be the week before, or whatever it is. But in the case of freelance, then of course they want that contract because it allows them, as I said, to go and work elsewhere, to sell their services elsewhere. Whereas with a 0 hours contract, they the individual usually doesn't want it. It's something they have generally been moved on to. It's a job that normally would have a fixed contract, a fixed hours
Professor,
contract.
you are the host now. You can enable the chat.
All right. Oh, there we go. Thank you. Sorry, I'm so busy launching everyone else. Yeah, there you go. I'm in chaps. Okay. Should be able to put things here. You're going to have a flood of messages to me now, aren't you? Delayed. Can be flooded with things. Okay. And yes, normally these fixed hours contracts offer for roles that would normally have fixed hours. I said fixed hours. Normally 0 hours contracts that normally have fixed hours, and for which the individual, in a sense, didn't sign up for. But the company has decided that's the way they want to go, and largely there's no alternative for the individual other than to leave the employment, which they may not be able to do. There may be some other sort of fine detail on the difference between the two, but fundamentally it's more to do with whether I want it or whether I don't. I think they've become known as 0 hours just because it's a new line, because the people aren't necessarily freelance. They can't take their employment elsewhere. It's not like I've got a skill that I'm selling to anybody. They can't take their employment anywhere else.
Dad, think about that. 0 hour contract is you have to specific hour work with the employer, but the freelancer, you have a flexibility of your hours. You have a mission, you tax, not about hour. You have you freelancer like design a home. You have this tax. What are hour you work? If you work morning, evening, I have to deliver the tax finish with final design. But 0 contract, you have to work just 2 hours in a day from 8 to 9 or 8 to 10.
Yeah.
This is the difference.
It's a question of where does the locus of control rest? With the freelance, the control almost rests with the employee, because they can decide, as you quite rightly say, I'll work in the morning, I'll work in the evening, or whenever I work. Whereas with the fixed hours, the locus of control rests with the employer, and they dictate the terms. And as I said, if I'm a freelance, I'm happy with that flexibility. Whereas if I'm fixed hours, by and large, I'm unhappy with what is effectively the same arrangement, but for which I don't have control. So, okay. Anything else? See, I said the chat's open now and nobody's writing anything. No.
Actually, it's not open, it's still disabled.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. I want to ask about business types.
Yes.
Which one is the best for startups, in your own opinion?
Oh, you mean sole trader versus partnership versus limited company?
Limited.
Is that what you mean? The difference between?
Yeah, the sole. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's difficult to say what is best, because that suggests that you would only ever go for that one, and that's not the case. For example, I have my own business, and that is a limited company, even though it is only me. And you would normally think, well, in that case, I would go for what's called a sole trader arrangement. And it really depends on your situation and what you see, how you see the business developing potentially, etc. I guess the advantages of a sole trader is it's much simpler to establish. I mean, basically, you just start working. Excuse me. You are always advised, obviously, to speak to an accountant, and they will, in a sense, set things up with the what we call HMRC, the tax authorities, because you will then be taxed on your drawings from the company, how much you take out, not the company, drawings from the business, how much you take out. And largely, therefore, say personal taxation. The business wouldn't necessarily pay tax because, well, you are the business and you're taxed as an individual. Another advantage might be that you don't, as a sole trader, have to go through many of the routines, if you like, that a corporate business does. You don't have to publish your accounts, for example, whereas a limited company, you would have to do that. Mm-hmm. The big disadvantage of a sole trader is the idea of liability, unlimited liability. So if, for example, you borrowed money for the business, then, and it goes wrong, then the lending authority, the bank, say, can come to you as the business owner, basically for everything. And if you have run up a debt of £20,000, they can come and take £20,000 from you in whatever shape or form. Obviously, they would go for money first, but if that means that you are you own a property, then you would somehow have to maybe raise the money through the property. The chances are, if you borrowed money from a financial institution like that, you would have to have committed your property as what we call security for the lending, and that gives the bank the right to effectively take control of your property. There's all sorts of balances and checks and balances in there, obviously, but ultimately that's what they can do. With a limited company, of course, that is almost like a separate person. They are a distinct entity in their own right, legally. And as such, therefore, if money is borrowed, it is the company that is borrowing the money and not you as the company owner. Obviously, you change to becoming a director in that case. It is the company that's borrowing money, not you. And therefore, the bank can only sue the company. Now, okay, the banks know this. So what tends to happen is if a company borrows money, they would probably take some security, as I called it, an asset, control of an asset, from the director who was arranging the loan anyway. So from that point of view, the director may still be tied in, but the liability is still limited to the company, not to the owners of the company, if you like, or the directors. That's seen as the biggest advantage. There are some tax advantages to being a limited company. If you start a limited company, you effectively started up by taking out shares in that company. For example, in my company, I have 80% of the shares, my partner has 20% of the shares, and so we are effectively the owners of this business. And if you're a shareholder, you presumably, I don't know if you know, but you get a dividend. Depending on how the company has performed financially, you may receive a dividend. It's like a thank you. It's almost like a thank you for investing in this. And payment of dividends by a company to their shareholders attracts a much lower rate of tax, because everything is taxed, a much lower rate of tax than the money you draw out of the business as a sole trader. For example, let me give an example. If I am a sole trader and let's say I take out of the business £20,000. No, let's make it £30,000. We're doing well. So we're taking £30,000 out. That £30,000 in simple terms would attract tax of 20%. But if I'm a limited company and I pay myself a dividend as the shareholder of the company, then those dividends attract tax at 7%. So you can see there's a big difference between the tax that you pay on the dividend compared to the tax you pay on your income.
You mean by dividends that
dividends.
helping community projects?
Yeah, well, dividends, as I said, it's like the company saying thank you. It's like a loyalty payment. It's the sort of the best way I can describe it in some ways. It's a loyalty payment. It's saying thank you for investing in us. So every shareholder has the right to be paid a dividend if the company declares this. It's down to the company whether they pay a dividend or not. And generally it's going to be paid when they do well financially. If they make profits, then they will be distributed to the shareholders after they paid everything else out. So I pay out my costs from my tax and everything. And what's left over, I can decide whether I'm going to pay a dividend to my shareholders. I don't have to, right? I don't have to pay it, and it's discretionary. Because if I don't pay it out, then maybe I'm going to keep that money in the business in order to invest in it and grow it, etc. Of course, once I paid a dividend out, the money's gone from my business. So the company can decide whether or not to pay this dividend. Now, okay, if I'm making profits as a company and owner of the company, and I don't pay a dividend, then those people out there in the general public, they're not going to invest in me because they're going to say, hold on, we're giving you our money, but you're not giving us anything back. So if you're making money as a business, then it's prudent to pay a dividend to your shareholders. But that tracks a lower tax burden, if you like. Chat has opened up. Hold on. It's just
I could add things. It's about
yes, go on.
I prefer the limited company for startup because I think about if you have a big company and the startup become a great company, you are the owner of your idea. Second thing about if you have a lot of liability, you in limited company, you couldn't take a lot of money, just the company assets when liquidation.
Yes.
Not for your personality. So it's prefer to limited company. For dividends, about the dividend, they are different between dividends and social responsibility. Social responsibility for the external environment of the company, but the dividends of the share just for shareholder who investment in the company and have a profit, so divide the dividends, or they are another way divide they increase the
capital.
Yes, the capital, increase the capital and investment between prefer to dividends.
Okay, does it include the employees or just the?
No, employees is not investor. Employees is they are have contract with the company as employee, just employee.
Yeah, but just some companies like Jawal, for example, they give their employees,
well,
this is the promotion and motivation to the employee. They give a part of the partial in dividends because they are increase him to an investment and pay a lot of efforts because they believe that the company is yours and your employee, not for the
okay.
Thank
you, Saad. Some companies operate a profit sharing scheme. And some companies also have a share purchase scheme whereby employees can purchase shares at a low price And obviously they then receive dividends that going forward, and they can take any capital gain from the sale of the shares at some point in the future. With those systems, generally you have to hold the shares for 5 years. Otherwise, you could end up with a large tax bill because they are offered at a low price. And if you then sell quickly at a much higher price because the market is high, then you may be taxed on what's called the capital gain between what you purchased them for and what you are now selling them for. But if you keep those shares, even though you bought them at a low price for 5 years, I think it's 5 years, 3 or 5, I think it's 5 years, then even though they may have risen substantially in that time, you do not pay a capital gains. It was designed to encourage people to take shares in their company, to induce a commitment to the company, etc. In the way that Syed was saying, it was it's an enticement or potentially an inducement to people to take responsibility for their company by buying shares because they have a stake in it. But yes, I decided for limited company because I saw the company continuing. Normally when it reaches a certain size, the recommendation is that you have a limited company. And so I thought that if I'm going to get there anyway, I might as well do it now. The biggest drawback they usually say for opening a limited company is the complexity of setting up the company. But to be honest, these days there are other companies who will do that all for you. So I just spoke to my accountant and he arranged it all. I had little to do, which was very nice. So I would pretty much recommend to anybody, you might as well go limited company now, rather than face that at some point in the future. And in the meantime, you do run the risk that you have unlimited liability for any debt that you incur. Just one final thing on that. There's then also the partnership. Now, the partnership is like saying we're two sole traders, and we have an agreement between us. But you have something called the joint and several liability. What that means is if you have two people in a partnership and the partnership incurs a debt for, say, £30,000, then the bank, if they're the lenders, can come to partner A and say, give me £30,000. And they can also go to partner B and say, give me £30,000. So potentially they get £60,000 and would then give some back, but they can go against each partner for the full amount. It's not that they go to the partners for, in this case, 15,000 and 15,000. They go for the partners for 30,000. And then if they get more, they pass it back. So that's called joint and several liability. Which obviously doesn't exist in either of the other two. Is that okay?
And we can say, okay. I want to ask you or to say this, what we talk about is a part of governance. It's a part of governance.
Yes.
That the governance have a part talking about the responsibility and the rules between the organization and the employment. Yeah. And it takes difference. You can different types. For example, for the rules, for the structures, for the works, for the plans, for the process. We talk about a frame. The governance is a frame which is organize this kind of relationship, and in the same time protect and saving the rights for everyone who's related to these
to the company
environment.
So
Company and because environment it's company, stockholders, employment, all the environment of the organization elements, for example.
yes, yeah, the governance encompasses everything in that sense.
It's the big umbrella for this kind of what we're talking about.
So can I ask you, just forgive me, can I ask you is there a question that you have to ask, or you just making a comment on governance?
It's a kind of comment, and in the same time, I want to ask how we can make sure that the governance, it's help us, it support us, not kind of challenge
So how
to
can
our work,
how can
to
we
our successful?
How can we be sure that the governors are impartial? They're not on the side of any particular stakeholder, and therefore
yes,
all stakeholders, in a sense, have parity in relation to their position with the company. Is that basically what you're saying, Meza?
Yes, and the other part, how is the governments will be support me as employment or work in this kind of organization?
So
How I to use?
How does governance support the employees? Yeah.
Yes, this is two parts, because sometimes we don't understand how the governance work in our company. For example, how will be useful for me. As I told you, sometimes will be challenge for a company, and in the same time, it will not be good for employees. It's independent.
I mean,
How they understand
governance is
this
supposed
concept
to,
and implementation is kind of thing.
governance is effectively sets the parameters for everything that happens within the business, and that would include the treatment, if you can call it that, of employees. So they will they may not write the policy, but they will certainly set the parameters of, for example, contracts of employment, as we were speaking about earlier. They will set the parameters about how people are supposed to be disciplined if there's a disciplinary case, or raise grievances, or something obviously that is relatively new, of whistleblowing. Do you understand the term whistleblowing? Does anybody understand the term whistleblower? Whistleblowing is when a member of an employee, maybe they are unhappy with something within the company, and it's not just because the manager said something bad to them, not something like that. Maybe they can see that a policy that the company has is unfair, or maybe is even illegal, and they know that they cannot take their issue internally because there are too many blockages and barriers, and they go external. In other words, usually they go to the press, to the newspapers, and they tell the story to them. Of course, once it becomes public, then there is, depending on the severity of it, then quite clearly it may involve the authorities, it may involve police, it may be this and the other. But there sometimes is a fear of whistleblowing, and because if I'm going to tell something about the company outside which is bad, I'm going to fear for my employment, obviously. And there are many cases where somebody has blown the whistle, and they have been sacked. Their employment has been terminated, or even that in some recent case where they have been bought off. In other words, the company has said, if you don't say anything, we'll give you some money. And they have then a non-disclosure agreement not to say anything. But it's a relatively new concept because quite frankly, there were things going on that should have been public and they weren't. So it took courageous people to actually blow the whistle, as the term is, and make it public so that it could be resolved. And that has happened. Just trying to think where one happened just recently. I think. Do you remember the issue with Volkswagen? They had limiters on the engines of their cars, basically giving false readings about the emissions of the car. You remember that situation?
Yeah.
Well, that came to light because the whistleblower, because somebody in the company said it's not right. I'm going to make it public, and it hasn't brought Volkswagen down, but they are severely impacted by that, because it then all came out that it was on pretty much every model, and they have paid enormous sums of money in compensation, rightly so. But of course, that might not have come out unless a whistleblower. And there have been other situations as well. I'm not sure if Enron was a case for that. You're all young people. You probably don't remember Enron at all. Anybody remember Enron? No? Enron is an American company. I think it's an energy company.
If you
Sorry, say again.
Yes, I want if you can give us kind of resource about governance and how we build a frames for governance, how we check it, assignments of governance. It's an important actually topic. We have to know more information about it, as you know, because the governance is a big umbrella which organize the work frame for company.
It is
in different
I think it's
in different levels.
It's one of those concepts that not many people understand, but nevertheless has a significant impact on their lives, because it affects how companies work and deal with them, etc. So yes, you're right. It's extremely important. What is it that you're wanting? I'm concerned, obviously, about time now, because
actually, because I have working in governance assessment for public sectors for some of ministries out for that I not like this kind of problem and challenges when I have working, and I have make kind of consultations with them how to working, and actually they connected with something called the excellency, the EFQM excellency. It's related actually for this point.
The what?
We have something.
The what?
EFQM, the internet. Can you hear me, Doctor?
I can. I'm writing down what you said. Can you just give me the 3 letters at the beginning again, please?
EFQM.
Okay, EFQM. Not something I've heard of, EFQM, but I will find out. And I tell you what, Meza,
if you want, I can send you. Yes.
Send me your email address, and we can correspond.
I will send you by chat now.
Okay. Yes, and we can correspond that way, because
I will send you now.
Thank you very much. I'm just looking to see. I've been asking for a meeting.
This is my email.
I think all the comments on chat seem to be about the connectivity with the sessions. Is that
Wow, the group.
anybody ask a technical question?
No.
No, I don't want to leave a question about the topic unanswered. And
I have a question about the governance. It's about the new concept, yes?
Governance.
Yes, it's about the when you have a lot of shareholder, a lot of the board, a lot of partnership, a lot of the company will become more bigger. So we need a governance to more control, to more management for the strategy and to coordinate the company as in a scope. So that's this what is, yes?
I think yes and no. I think.
Can
yes,
I answer you? Can I answer Mr. Saad about this point?
Go on. Yes. Yes, please go
The
ahead.
governance actually is a frame. Yes, actually, governance it's a frame. Organize your work in organization from different levels. Stockholders, part of them. Structures, part of them. Strategy, part of them. Resource, part of them. It's organize all the work in organization to have a good performance and get to achievement their goals and in the best way. This is what we can say about governance.
It is the governance basically is everything within the business. It provides, I think somebody used the term, a framework within which the company will operate. In a sense, I mean, you're saying, Syed, that it's relatively new.
My question is about recently or from all the methods?
It's cover all the things. It's cover from your work responsibility. It's come from the rules and the laws. It's talk about how manage you.
My question is, it's modern or old?
It's an old, actually, it's old. Old concept. It's old concept.
Okay, it has come to prominence in more recent years, largely because there have been some very large failings in governance within the corporate sector. I mentioned the company Enron. That was probably the biggest corporate failure there has ever been, and that was down to poor governance. There have then been others, like the Volkswagen one, which only happened because people at the top were covering it up. There was a company in the UK called Carillion, the biggest building company in the UK, which was doing things financially that it shouldn't have been doing. And that only came alight because I think somebody blew the whistle on that. So it has become more prominent because of these failures. It should have been there forever, in a sense. I acknowledge that, okay, if I'm a sole trader, then governance is me governing me. But as soon as the company starts to grow, then you need to have good governance. It really, I'm going to say it, but I'll immediately counter it. It does apply more to larger businesses because there are more things that can go wrong, if you like, and they're more complex. They have more departments and things like that. So there are more things that can go wrong. There are more people in it that can make it go wrong. But it doesn't mean to say that even if it's a small company, that you wouldn't want to be able to demonstrate good governance, because if any business is going to want to get investment from outside, then if they can demonstrate good governance, they are more likely to be received favorably. Whereas if it's obviously things aren't being taken care of in that way, then no investor is going to lend money to a company that is not safe. And in many cases, lack of governance is unsafe. So it's come to prominence recently, relatively recently, but the need for it has always been there.
Thank you. That's right. And company is more strong than country. And if they have a board is failure, the effective the economic of the whole the country and the whole the people and the whole, so it's important to be governance for this company.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's probably some ways easier to control a company than it is to control a country, in some ways. So and that's why obviously you've got with multinational companies now, big global companies, they cannot operate that way unless they have good governance, because they're having to go cross-border internationally, where there are quite clearly many different regimes and rules and stuff like that. So they need to have their own internal framework to operate in, so that they can effectively operate within different countries. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think, where are we? I've got your email, which I'll correspond with you separately.
Just last question.
Yes, go ahead.
You believe that in a free market that a big company have a free from government, or they are controlled by government? I think it's controlled by government, not a free market.
I mean, obviously the free market brings lots of advantages, but just as I said about big multinational companies, they can become potentially too powerful in that respect, because if they are domiciled in one country but operating in another, then, and this applies to, it's very topical at the moment for companies like Google and Amazon and give another one, Apple. Those companies are global. In some cases, they are obviously bigger than some countries in terms of their revenue generation. Now, in that sense, that company is generally owned by a few people, the shareholders, relatively few. It's owned by a few people, although the directors might be, in a sense, appointed by other people. They aren't elected. There's no officers within that company that are elected by the public, and yet they can impact the lives of people, globally, but have no accountability to those people globally. So there is this dilemma in terms of, are we happy to let a global business affect the lives of people internationally with no accountability? It was easier when companies weren't global, because they were contained and they were subject to the laws of that country. Whereas now they may be domiciled in one country, but operate in another, and therefore may not be subject to the laws of that country. And the example of that is tax, where the likes of Google and Apple are heavily criticized for paying little or nothing in tax in many countries, and yet they generate vast amounts of revenue in those countries. So there is an increasing movement to have those companies pay their fair share of tax. So long answer to your question, but I agree that there should be some controls by governments, which are, after all, elected in most cases, on global companies to avoid them having what is effectively unrestricted power. And that's a very emotive term. I don't mean to mean, but they have a lot of influence, and I think that somehow needs to have a check on it. So.
Yes, as recently appear in the market, there are a competition between company. After that, the conflict between country like China and America. That's behind, like shadow director.
Yes, yes. We come back to that one. Well linked. But yes, that's where obviously it becomes political rather than a commercial thing. And in some cases, it's quite obvious, and it's admitted that the governments are supporting a particular business. But in some cases, in many cases also, it's not so obvious, and in fact, it's hidden. That takes us in a whole different direction. Yeah, that's definitely another session. So, yeah, one to think about in that case, Huawei. You know about America's position on Huawei, the Chinese technology company.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the war between internet and 5G.
Yes. So, okay. I think we need to close the session, and I will check the chat to see if there are unanswered questions, and also I will correspond by email with. Forgive me, I didn't pronounce your first name properly, but I have your email address, and I will write to you. Is there anything else anybody wishes to say at this stage?
Thank you.
Professor, did you recommend any books as reference to the subject?
Any articles also?
Yes. Can I again forward those to everybody by email?
Please.
Yes.
Can we send our email?
The authority, the colleges will have all your email addresses.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. I will send you details of articles and any books and that I feel are relevant to the section that we're talking about. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for making my first one so interesting. It was really good. I hope you learned things.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a nice weekend, Professor.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much indeed, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
See you there. See you next time.
Yes, and we're getting to accounts next time. Figures.
Last week?
I don't think I'm doing next week, but let me just
week.
Let me just see.
I think next week.
Yeah,
Saturday.
That might be me. Let me just check. I can tell you now. What's that one? No, I don't have next week, but I have the week after. That is interpreting business accounts.
Business accounts.
That's the 13th. And then I have the 20th, which is cash and working capital.
From calendar?
Beg your pardon?
I can from the calendar.
I'm not looking at the Liverpool College's calendar. I'm looking at my calendar at the moment, but obviously I make sure that they're on the calendar, on the Liverpool College's calendar, definitely. That's the 13th and the 20th and the 27th, so 3 weeks. I'm not sure if there's one next week because it's certainly not something that I am involved with. Yeah, but I will speak to the college to make sure that anything that should be there is on the calendar anyway. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for calling Liverpool Training Limited. If you know your party's extension, you can dial it at any time. For the operator, press 0 or stay on the line. To repeat this menu, press the hash key.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. Sorry for bothering you, but
No. It's fine. I know it went over, but we were obviously deep. We're obviously deep in conversation. So, and most people stayed. I mean, presumably they can just go if they wish to. So, but the fact that they stayed, I was pleased. But I don't. Yeah, it's difficult to know. Was it worthwhile? Was it valuable? I don't know.
Yes, if it was good, we will share some feedback.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
With the student, yeah, and we will update you. No worries.
Thank you. That's nice to know. It's quite a weird environment in some ways. Obviously, the whole online thing is now we're all used to that, but
yes,
we're used to more, in some ways, more interaction. But with this one, there was a lot of interaction. There were loads of people talking, which was really good. I enjoyed it very much.
They used to have distance sessions.
Yes.
What was the problem in the middle of the session as we give the all?
Well, there were two things.
You to share screen.
Yeah, what I was going to do was there was an issue with two people who, I think at least two people, who were new into the MBA and had not, they said, been given like contact details and things like that. And these were the people who had a time of 1 hour later than the actual start time. I think it's because of the mix between Jordanian time and Palestinian time.
We have added to the calendar that it's at GMT time, so they need to only follow London time.
Yes, but I'm not sure whether they had accessed the calendar, whether they are able to access it. They're that new in that sense. So what?
Students who are not inducted already or didn't start before, yes.
Yeah, I
didn't notice them actually, but I will double check the attendance because they should start with the new cycle. They are not.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking. They were coming in halfway through. One of them I have the email address for, and I was just wondering whether I could get all of it. I may be able to pick up some information. So sorry, forgive me. I'm talking at my screen. Because my chat, I was talking at my screen rather than talking into my telephone. The chat was disabled from my end, if you like, because I don't organize the session. I'm not able to enable the chat function.
We didn't
well,
do anything.
All right. Okay. Well, Okay.
I don't know where is the problem. It was enabled from the beginning.
Right. Okay. Certainly on my screen, it said it was disabled, and other people were saying it was disabled as well. And then somebody said it's now enabled. And yes, we got this stream of I think so, to be honest, I don't know. But I think we could hypothesize for ages. But I think it's one of the things maybe when I do a session, just need to check from the outset that it is enabled.
But excuse me, they didn't use the chat to ask questions.
No, I know. They just use the chat to give telephone numbers and things. Because I know, because I was expecting this flood of questions and then nothing came. And then it's all about getting onto the WhatsApp group. I think because we thought at one stage it would be a good alternative if we couldn't enable chat, that we would use the WhatsApp group. But of course, I'm not a party of the WhatsApp group. I could do with being.
No, it's not formal. We tried it.
Yeah. But then of course somehow we got chat. But by that time, everybody had put their numbers and everything on there. So I did check. There was nothing.
It's not our responsibility. We have added.
Yeah. I did check through the chat, and I don't think there's anything of a technical nature in the chat. It is more just them giving each other email addresses and stuff like that. So I mean, it's nice that they share information, and maybe they can speak to each other. No, I enjoyed it, and I hope it was okay. I have to confess, very nervous, because even though you think you know the subject to an extent, somebody's bound to ask the question you don't know, and that happened a couple of times. I don't know what EFQM excellency is, but I think it's because there's a couple of things. First of all, I am always in awe of the delegates on this sort of thing who can speak English, so much better than I could ever speak Arabic. So, but nevertheless, sometimes that slightly gets in the way, and there is a difference, obviously, a time difference caused by the distance, and that sometimes has an impact. And we all just have to be patient with each other.
Yes.
Thank
you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay.
Thank you.
Do you need anything from me at this stage?
Only the email that you promised the student to send. The
Yes. Do I direct that to you, or do I direct to her and copy you in? How do I do that?
You can send them to me or to the info email.
Okay. Yes.
info@liverpool-colleges.
Info at Liverpool. What's the first bit again? N4.
Info, INFO.
Okay. Oh, yes. At Liverpool. Okay, I will do the email to that address.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Hey, Bob. Come in. Come in. Why can't I do that? Yeah.
Let's see. Finished to do things somehow.
How
was it?
Okay, this still seems to be recording. Why is it recording?